hoping that our leadership across America, and especially in our small businesses, will come to think of 2021 as the year you bloomed.
Follow the Leader features dynamic women entrepreneurs in their journeys to becoming a success in business. This podcast is an inspirational space for entrepreneurs, future entrepreneurs, and thought leaders as they share their keys to success. I am Chanel Christoph Davis, the CEO and founding partner of the largest woman and minority-owned sales tax advisory practice in the country, Davis & Harmon, LLC. Hello. Today we have in the guest chair the guest leader, Sheryl Hardin. Sheryl is a passionate organizational change management professional who enjoys assisting companies as they create a business strategy, manage change, prepare for rapid growth, manage strategic projects, and improve processes. She can often be found speaking and consulting as a national speaker, seminar leader, adjunct faculty instructor, and business advisor. She supports programs like Goldman Sachs grant-funded initiative 10,000 Small Businesses, designed by Babson College, and the Institute for Economic Empowerment Women program, Peace Through Business. She has worked with such global companies as Hewlett-Packard, Securus Technologies, Six Flags Theme Parks, and Coty Inc., and she has received in the past the Francois Coty Award in 2017 for her global PMI team. So welcome to the show, Sheryl. I'm so happy to talk to you today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm excited for this conversation. It's been a few months in the works, but I think that you are so key in 2021 because you are a change expert, organizational change expert in change management. And one thing that I know that entrepreneurs, business leaders, thought leaders, executives are thinking about this year in 2021 is change. We're all going through a process of change. So I knew that you were going to be like the perfect person to have in the beginning of my season to talk about how we can reframe and think about planning our businesses, our careers, our organizations going forward into the future.
Well, that is so true. And since 2020, every business out there at every level has had to be focused on change all the time. And so as we're preparing to really bloom out into the future of 2021, I am excited to see more and more small businesses take a look at how they can still look at what works for them and determine what isn't working so much and how they can change and grow and innovate, because that's going to be key in the going into 2021 and 2022 and back to an era of prosperity that was even better than before.
Exactly. And I think one of the things about entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs is that we're really poised to really thrive in an environment of change and rapid growth because we have to, we're nimble and we can move and adjust with the flow. For me personally, as a leader of a company with, consultants, I'm very much in the past, I subscribe to the theory that as a part of my Gen X background, is that consulting teams need to be together. We work best, we collaborate, and we innovate better if we're in the same room or we're in the same office, because it just in our mind, Gen X, I can only speak for my generation, in our mind, creativity and innovation happens best if we're all together. So we're going to have to challenge that thinking. We have had to challenge that thinking because my team, beginning in March of 2020, we all went to 100% remote working, and we've done it for almost a year. We're coming up on a year. And I can tell you, Sheryl, I was shocked that we were able to do as well as we're able to do in a remote. And it was harder for to the partners, to be honest. It was harder for us than it was for our team, because our team are they're millennials, so they thrived in this environment. But for us, as leaders, it is continuing to be a challenge, and it was very, very hard in the beginning.
Well, so it becomes finding your comfort zone and how much remote it is good for you. But the truth is that large global companies have been collaborating remotely for 20, 30 years. So this is not as new as people think it is. When my team got the Global Innovation Award from Coty Beauty in 2017, I had 100 people working on 7 continents. There was not one day where the whole team got together. In fact, there were team members that I never met personally.
Wow. All I can say to that is, bravo, because you were the leader of the team, and I think that's phenomenal. But wow, go ahead, finish.
And so collaboration isn't as much about space as people have thought it was. It's about opportunity to be together and to share thoughts. And there are all kinds of ways to do that without sitting across the desk from each other.
So tell me, in order for you to poise or to get your company ready for this new way of working, and this is very much not an American way of working. We don't really operate this way. I can see it being more prevalent in global entities. But what are some key things, and you share with me some key things to think about, but what should leaders think about in order to make the remote teaming work?
So what I hear most from leaders is that there's a discomfort level because they don't see people working. So as you walk through your normal office environment, you see there are these 2 people over here collaborating, and there's this person over here working individually. And if anybody has a question, they can just walk right into your office, and it's all nice and compact. And you see it happening. But the truth is that you don't stand over your people and watch them work. That you spend most of your day in your office doing the things that you need to do. And unless you need to collaborate or bring your team members in for a meeting, you don't see them. They're still getting work done. And so we have to create the comfort level that happens even when you're not in the same space. Reporting is a really big part of that.
Okay.
So I encourage leaders to create status reporting. Now, that's never popular on the first day, but it has a lot of benefits.
Okay.
One, you're able to see where people are moving forward. And if you ask them to report their issues, you can find out more quickly than you would if you were sitting right next to each other that they're stuck, because you can see that task is not moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And you give your people an opportunity to think, what did I do this week? What am I doing next week? What has to be done in order for me to meet my deadlines? That logical approach to planning work helps people be more productive and efficient. And so I always ask my team members to give me a weekly status report, and it shouldn't be sophisticated and it shouldn't take very long. If your team members are spending more than 30 minutes telling you what they're working on, that's too long.
Okay.
Unless you're in an environment where you bill every 15 minutes, and then maybe they should spend an hour, but it shouldn't be an exorbitant amount of time. So very simple status reports. Team meetings are huge. So if you've got people who are collaborating on a big project, then you want to do kind of the same thing, but over Zoom or a conference call, you want to take 15 minutes to say, what am I doing today? What do I plan to do tomorrow? What's in my way? What's in my way is the biggest thing for you to learn, because as a leader, it is your job to clear the path so people can be successful. Once people are really effective and efficient at doing that, it takes no time at all. You have to be clear, though, that 15 minutes is the time that you're focusing on work and nothing else. That is not the time to talk about your new baby or the recipe you tried last night. It's not personal time.
Okay.
Now, the one thing that can be more difficult to create is that sense of family that a small business can have. And that's where I find chats are handy. Chats are the place to ask a one-off question. They are the place to make announcements. Here's the picture of my brand new car, my brand new baby. I need help with this or that. That becomes the water cooler.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so like having a internal, we have an internal system that's like an informal chat bot where we can go in and just banter back and forth. We celebrate each other if it's a birthday or anniversary or a specific win that happened during the week, then we'll drop those things. And, and we share information like, stuff about COVID. If we want to tell people, hey, we just got, word from the CDC that we need to double mask now, whatever it is, we drop things into our internal chat.
That is perfect because that keeps that conversation going. And as we get vaccinated and start to have herd immunity, then there'll be times when we can get together. But you may find that people work and are happier if they spend more remote time. So I'm encouraging leaders to consider maybe one day a week when everybody works at the office. And that's the day that you have internal meetings. And then everybody goes back out and gets their work done. And then you have, you come back together one day next week. Or some kind of part-time initiative, because what I find is that when you let your people work from home, they use the time they used to commute to work.
Yes. Well,
they have a great idea at 9 p.m. and they go and they write it down so they won't lose it in the morning. And people can actually be far more effective when they're working from home. So I'm encouraging leaders to consider what really works best for you.
I love that. And I think that we're starting to figure that out as a team because some of the work that we do involves external people. So we do audit management for sales tax. So we have to have interaction with the state of Texas or different state taxing authorities, like, any state, Mississippi, Louisiana, New York, they want to come into our office to conduct exams. So we've noticed that the state is not wavering on that. They want to come in, and which makes sense. They want to come in and see paper documentation, and some of it is just not conducive to sending it electronically. So we do have to have available space for them. And so I think it's going to be some sort of a hybrid where for culture, we have to have some time in the office together for sure. But we also need to have space for external third-party people to come in to do examinations. So I think it's going to be a mix. Whoever is working on an audit with an external team or a different state, they need to be in the office that week, and we'll have a calendar so everyone know where everyone is. But that person's in the office for X number of days to be able to interact with different state auditors.
And see, that makes sense. That makes sense for you. And what makes sense for another business may look a little bit different. The other thing that you can do is you may have a whole team working on a really big audit. So maybe you have one representative that's in your office and everyone else is remote, but they are on a conference call. So just as if you would be together in your office, all you have to do is turn to the conference call and say, Sam, I have a question about. as if you're working around the same conference table.
I like that. So you just have like a call-in number. It's a static number. Everyone know that this is our number for the day. Everyone that's working on the project dial into this number. We're gonna stay on this call all day.
And so I have done that for global projects where the number stayed open 24 hours a day because people were on it during different time zones.
Wow.
But your team had access to, you could keep yourself on mute until you needed somebody, and then you would just say, so-and-so, I need your help now, or so-and-so, I have a question, or can the four of us get on another call because we need to talk about this problem.
Gotcha.
So you don't have to be in the same conference room. You're essentially creating a virtual conference room.
Gotcha. Yeah, like I said, we're starting to evolve that way. It's kind of happening naturally, where certain team members are in our office and we're not there together, but they're conferencing each other and talking to each other throughout the day to be able to communicate about a project that they're working on together. But you have to go where the records are, right? So, I mean, yeah, that's the way we've been adjusting. But it's interesting once we start to get herd immunity, trying to figure out that mix of how many days a week do we want people back in the office? Do we require everybody to come back in full? I mean, that is a conversation we need to probably start having now.
And so what I recommend for people to do is when you start to look at that kind of change, we all change so rapidly overnight that there were pain points because we hadn't considered what would be different.
Mm-hmm.
And as we start to shift, because people are able to move around more, this time we give some logical effort to what's the process now? And if we're going to do it differently in the future, what will the process be going forward? To have a conversation with the team about that, to write what happens now in a process flow or a procedure chart, and compare it to what's going to happen in the proposed future, so that on paper we can figure out what the snags might be.
Mm, yeah.
Because it is so much less painful and expensive to see the problems ahead of time.
So what are some of the snags that you found with moving teams towards this type of a model?
So if you're moving to a hybrid model, the snags that you can sometimes run into is an understanding of what the workday is.
Okay.
So especially as children kind of come and go from in-person learning, we know that parents have some responsibilities that they haven't had before, and they have to have time for that. So they may choose to have a longer work day because they've got more interruptions.
Okay.
You may have people on your team who naturally work better early and other people who naturally work better late. You can get them at their most efficient by being flexible about that, but there should be a work day where everyone is working. And so that's the time period that you schedule meetings and you plan collaboration, because everybody has said that between 10 and 3 or 9 and 2 or whatever you determine your hours of overlap are going to be, everyone's going to be available during that time.
Okay.
Because one of the difficulties as you start to have a more flexible model is that you'll plan meetings, and if you haven't set a day, someone else has planned for flexibility during that period, and you start to see people dropping off.
Gotcha.
And not attending meetings. Everyone will have to agree on their availability.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually really easy for millennials. They do not mind being on screen at any time of the day or night, and they aren't picky about whether they've brushed their hair.
They just show up. They're like, you're going to get me the way I am. I'm sorry.
Exactly. For some of the older team members, that's a really fussy thing. And so you may just have to agree as to what the dress code is.
Okay.
Dress
That's a
codes
good
for
one. No,
office.
dress code is important. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So
And
some of
when
these
you
things.
have to be available to be on screen. So the other way around, millennials shouldn't be waiting 30 minutes for someone to put on their makeup. So what's the office dress code? And if I'm calling you in overlap hours, then you're just answering. We aren't waiting for you to prep.
Okay.
Many offices are going to find that people have gotten used to dressing more comfortably as they work. And so that is another area of dress code that business leaders are going to want to take a look at. In your case, when you have people coming into the office, you have a professional attire that should be adhered to. If you don't
Correct.
have people coming into the office, it may be that people can show up more casual. It's something
And a lot of this has to be modeled from the leadership team. We would have to make these decisions and model that behavior, because no one's going to be comfortable showing up in leisure wear if the partners have on button-down shirts with pressed slacks. They're going to fall back into dressing similar to the leaders. They
are. And but even some of your leaders may find that you thought you had to be in a jacket to do your work, and you realize that really jogging pants and a sweatshirt worked. It doesn't make you think better. Okay. But you do have a public persona. And so calendaring what's happening in your office and setting expectations for where you have to be and what you have to look like, that's going to be a little more challenging in the future.
Absolutely.
But it's about communication.
I'm already thinking about all the I'm already thinking about all those challenges. But I mean, I definitely think if you're working remotely, there's some flexibility there. Many times if we're in the office for any given reason, we don't control sometimes the third party people that come in. So that makes it a little bit more challenging with having a lax dress code inside the office, because anyone, an auditor can pop up, a client can pop up. It's, you just never know what's going to happen in a specific day. Well, and then there is, as people start to work in and out of the office, it's where are you going to store things? Correct. So when you've got paper documents, do they have to stay on site? When you've got online documents, who gets to see them? How available are they? We have all seen the issues that the government is now having with solar wind. And small businesses are very vulnerable to outside attacks. Mm-hmm. So as we extend our work network going into the future, whether you're on-site, off-site, or at home, we have to give more thought to cybersecurity. Absolutely. So you've given us 3 great things that can be a pitfall to this new environment, which is, really having an established workday and having an understanding and communicate what's expected. Dress code flexibility is a part of it as well, and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable from a tire perspective, and cyber attacks. Those are 3 big things for us to think about, for sure. Well, and so I'd like to kind of reframe that and turn it around and say those aren't pitfalls, those are opportunities. Mm-hmm. Because as you're looking for and hiring new people, then the flexibility that you're considering is going to be attractive. Very attractive. Okay, so now you brought up a concern that my leadership team is thinking about. So when we went into this pandemic, we mm-hmm. had a very mature, not mature, but we've been together for a while. So it was easier for us to go remote because we knew each other. We worked together with each other for years. We understand their work ethic. We know each other. How do you onboard? Like that part we can't get our mind around. How do you bring a new person in? Because I could think of a couple of different things. One, I know that we can onboard someone who has many years experience in sales and use tax, that maybe they've been at the state, different state tax authorities for years, and they're already an established professional. That I can see as not being as big of a challenge. But to me, my daughter's generation is going to suffer because how do you bring in someone who they're just graduating from college? They don't have any professional experience. How do you onboard them, train them, culturally orient them into your organization? That seems like companies are going to move away, especially small businesses are going to move away from hiring college grads fresh out of college. And they're going to lean towards established executives because we don't have to babysit. This is how, I'm just being honest, this is how a small firm or a small enterprise will think. The time and the effort that's going to take to orient a new person that, maybe 1-2 years out of college and get them up to speed, and we're all remote, that seems daunting.
Well, and so I found the opposite is actually true, because these kids, they're coming through high school and college in the most remote way possible. And for a decade, they have been willing to take on the remote collaboration tools far faster than some of the older generation. Okay. So having shared documents that you're working on, college graduates will be very experienced with that. But having remote teams that you've set deadlines and everybody has to bring their piece or part remotely is very common when they're doing remote projects for college.
So I'm thinking more about the training aspect. I would think that you would have to do more of having a conference line open all day long, because they just don't, there's what they learned in school, but then there's the real world. Like what you learn in the textbook has nothing to do with what we do on a daily basis. It's just so.
Well, and so that is so true for most businesses. And I do recommend that you partner a new person with a mentor, and that mentor stays available to them throughout the day, that as their mentor is sitting through meetings, that they're attending. And so they're learning from how their mentor reacts, in the same way that you would have them shadow and do junior work. If they were sitting next to each other, you're going to ask them to shadow and do junior work as they're sitting apart. Okay. So again, it's not so much about the physical locale, but it's about being able to share those documents. It's about being able to quickly ask a question. And it may be that maybe your mentor doesn't want to be on a conference call all day, but they agree to monitor a chat. So on chat, your trainee can say at any given time of the day, when do you have a minute to answer my questions? It becomes about teaching them to group up their questions so they're best using their mentor's time.
So I think you definitely would have to be very intentional if you're hiring interns and hiring, inexperienced staff, to make sure that someone's checking in on them on a regular basis. Because I think too, folks can feel like they're imposing, and like the stuff that they don't understand or don't know seems more magnified because you're having to intentionally call someone or chat with someone to say, hey, I'm stuck. You can, it depends on the personality, but some people could feel intimidated by that and be like, oh, I just called them this morning and I got more, I could see a person feeling isolated.
And those same people will be intimidated to walk over to somebody for the fourth time during the day.
Okay.
So it's about making your interns comfortable and making them trust that you didn't expect that they showed up on the doorstep knowing everything yesterday.
Okay.
And it can actually be more effective and efficient if you're planning times to be together or they're grouping up their question because they aren't interrupting their mentor 12 times during the day.
Okay.
That maybe they've got 2 conversations that are scheduled every day, and only if they're stacked do they interrupt. Okay. They're just it's about being open to the new possibility and finding the way that it works specifically for your company.
So really try to focus on the opportunities and not so much focusing on the potential roadblocks or problems that could occur.
So you want to agree to a process that seems fairly roadblock free at the beginning. And then if you have a glitch, you have a glitch and you talk about it and you change the process. But it's about finding a way that everyone works best together.
So I'm going to say this, Sheryl. I'm not very easily intimidated. That's not my personality. But this intimidates me for some reason. And it could be just, the only thing I could think of is why this seems so challenging to me is because of the way my generation was raised. We were kind of raised in this whole collaborative teamwork type model is the way we were taught. So the more you're telling me things, the more things I'm thinking of, like, what about, but I'm going to have to pray on it and try to start thinking through some of these challenges.
Okay, so I don't even
word challenges. How about that? I'm going to stop saying the word challenges.
I don't even think that it's specifically our generation. I think it's the fact that small businesses have gotten comfortable seeing people work. And it's the discomfort of not being able to see them work. Back in 1980 and 1990, we were dealing with the same thing. As companies grow, you have to be more and more hands-off. There's a level of discomfort because you're trusting your business to the people you work with. Mm-hmm. And if you're used to seeing them at work, not seeing them takes time to get used to. Okay. But if you're having them appropriately report, if you're having the quick meetings where they can tell you where they're stuck, if junior members' work is being reviewed, you wouldn't be seeing that anyway because you've got your own job to do.
True. That's very true. So I talk about being productive. I've been the most productive remotely than I've been in a long time because it's just, the amount of concentration and level of attention to my tasks. I've been able to be more creative, innovate more, and just think about more opportunities for my firm because I have more time to myself to think through things.
So isn't that exciting? Why would you want to give that up?
It's true. I'm just trying to figure out the balance, Sheryl. I'm trying to figure it out.
It is all about balance.
So I want to give the audience a little bit of context. We kind of glossed over the fact that you won this award for Coty Beauty. But what was the project that you won the award for? What were you doing for Coty when you were given that award?
So Coty Beauty had a merger, more of an acquisition with CoverGirl. And I was invited to work on the North American merger project where my team was determining how we were going to integrate, what computers could talk to each other and what information could they pass back and forth, what computer systems were no longer going to be needed, if there were duplication of effort, which got kept and which got left behind, and how those computers would be kept safe from cyber outsiders. Once we turned everything on in North America, then I was invited to come to Europe and do the same thing, which was a little more challenging because now you've got more countries, more regulations, and more continents. And so we developed a system that would more quickly and easily show you where there was a problem.
Okay.
So if information wasn't getting to one computer that it expected, there are normal dashboards that handle that. But when you're working in multiple languages, multiple currencies,
Yes.
multiple regulations, that can be more complicated. So we built into the system a lot more references so that if a problem was about to occur, you were more likely to see it.
Gotcha. I predict in my crystal ball, Cheryl, that you are about to be very busy. I predict that your expertise is going to be greatly in demand. I mean, it's like I
Happy
said, it's
news.
just, yeah, change management. I mean, it's the word of the year. My whole focus for 2021 for the podcast is to focus on entrepreneurial joy and entrepreneurial, just getting to the next level in your business where you're able to start to, I guess, innovate and
Yes,
elevate and go to the next level. So I think that this conversation, it was just so necessary to have. And what I've taken away from my conversation with you, because I wanted them to I want everybody to know how big the project was, where you the size of organizations you work in, to give them an understanding that it's doable.
mhm,
But what I'm coming away with from you is to be positive,
yes,
right? Be joyful in the process
mhm.
and innovate. I'm writing that word down. And look for all the blessings that's going to come out of this new environment.
Absolutely. And the important thing is, while that's all happening, to build an accountable organization.
Okay. Yes.
So all of that can happen within an accountable organization where if you don't see someone's head been overworked, you still can trust that it's happening.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, the one thing we didn't talk about, and I want to touch on this before we go, is culture.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll tell you what I've been doing for culture and how I'm going to tweak it for 2021. For culture last year, I did a lot because I just felt like, again, change, right? What happens in change is you can lose some folk. Communicate so that people can understand where your organization is and what level we are operating at. So we instituted twice a week team meetings.
Awesome.
So we do team meetings on Tuesdays and Fridays. We've cut them down. Like the ones last year, they would go on. We would talk
Yeah,
for,
no one wants to do that.
but it was necessary last year. It was necessary because we went through a pandemic. We
Mhm.
went through a period of racial reckoning,
We did.
a lot of horrible news. And we literally took that time with our team to just hear each other out and just to find out how people were doing internally, not for work, but we just wanted to know how they were doing. So we gave ourselves the space to really just talk to each other. It wasn't.
Well, and so bless you for doing that. And I think the thing that's important for culture is that you say this meeting is for work
Yes.
and this meeting is for us.
Yes. So the
And
meetings last year was primarily for us. It wasn't work related. This was just, how are you guys doing? We reported any type of wins for the company, statuses,
awesome.
everyone check in, give me your best things that happened this week. It was more of that. So it's more that level. Now we're transitioning more to shorter meetings where we just check in 30 minutes, we're done. 30, we're done. But I think with culture is when you're dealing with a remote team, you have to balance because you don't want to overdo it. So how do you strike that balance with, team events? We did a virtual wine tasting class, not wine tasting. We did we hired a mixologist, and the mixologist will help us to create cocktails. We did it for a month. We did it every Thursday night for a month. So it was like four classes, and she taught us all these different, bourbons and whiskeys. It was really cool. But you can't do that too much because then it becomes over.
Then it becomes a burden.
It becomes a burden. I didn't want to use that word. I was trying to come up with a better word, but yeah, it's like this balance where you start to lose people. So how do you find that balance?
So if you're going to do something that takes people's attention away from their family, even when they've been with their family every day for days and days and days, then you don't want to do it too often. You might want to do it every other week or once a month, but like you did with the mixologist, a remote happy hour, a remote game, you can have, similar to when the basketball teams are all in
the playoffs. Yeah.
The playoffs. Something like that. I love your check-in point because I predict in 2021, there's still going to be a whole lot going on. There's a whole lot to deal with. I don't think the racial reckoning is at all over. And there's going to be a lot of push to see new legislation that makes at least our world more fair, I hope. And people are going to have opinions about that. And climate change is coming to the forefront.
We just had an issue again. So talking about giving ourselves time to really share how we're doing, we had to do that this last week with this ice storm, this snowmageddon that just hit Texas. We had to check on our employees and say, are you guys okay? Do you have food? Do you have water? Like, what's going on? So, yeah.
Yeah. And what are we going to do with our deadlines? Because clearly nobody's working.
Like Texas shut down. Yeah.
Yeah. And so those processes for what do you do when something bad happens? So there is some expectation, and you may want to more formalize that if something bad happens, you should check in and let us know what you need within 12, 24 hours, or we're going to come looking for you and make sure you're safe.
Yes.
I do that all the time in global travel because if you're, traveling from one continent to another, I want to know you got there. And if you're in an area of unrest, I want to know that you're safe every single day. So it becomes a process where people know what to do to let each other know you're okay.
Yes.
And that whole debrief that I love that you do. A lot of companies don't take time for it, but when you've got shared trauma like that, it helps to talk it over and know you're not alone.
Yeah, it was very important for us really early. We started this really early too, like I would say early April. But we had grown together as such a close team, and I didn't want to lose that. And I could see that was going to be a challenge. I didn't want to, whenever outside opened back up again, I didn't want us showing up to the office as strangers. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
I wanted to make sure that we kept our connectivity. So that's why I made sure that we would do these team meetings twice a week.
So I love that. And I love that you set them up as these are our check-in moments.
Yes.
And these are our business meeting moments. And when you do that and you keep it to a time schedule so people aren't stressed about how long it's going to take, they are more able to be fully there.
Yes.
So if you say, we're going to have a 9 a.m. 15-minute daily meeting, and you started at 9 a.m. and you end it at 9:15, people will show up and they will be engaged.
Yes.
If you're going to say, we're going to do a brown bag once a week, and that's going to be our personal check-in moment. And it's going to start at 12 and it's going to end at 12:45. And you start at 12 and you end at 12:45 every single time, people will show up and be engaged.
Yeah, it has really been good. I mean, we've even on Fridays, we towards the end of the year, we had each team member was responsible for the Friday meeting, and we played games. We were like, okay, it's your Friday. Whose Friday is it? And we had so much fun. It was the best. So yeah, culture is going to be important as well in this new work environment.
And so I'm really glad that you brought that up, because a lot of companies think, well, we just can't have culture because we're separated. And that's just proof that you can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as we wrap up our conversation, what are you excited for 2021? What should we kind of, as leaders, lean into for 2021? Any parting thoughts for our listeners?
So I'm hoping that our leadership across America, and especially in our small businesses, will come to think of 2021 as the year you bloomed.
Oh.
So it will be the year that you considered innovation. And where do you fit, wherever your industry is, in making the world a gentler, more flexible, more considerate space. So as we start to resolve some of the issues that we saw in 2020, we should celebrate, and we should be more and more aware of how we can make opportunity for every single person in our environment.
Yes. Yes, inclusion and just openness for all people.
I totally agree. And I believe that's what 2021 is going to be about. Because as we celebrate our differences, that'll be what unites us.
I love that. I think that's a perfect way to end the show. This is going to be 2021 is going to be our year to bloom.
To bloom.
I love it. Thank you so much, Sheryl. You are amazing. Yes. And I will add your links where people can get in contact with you if they want to hire you as a change management professional. She is the best. But again, thank you for sharing all your wisdom with my audience.
Well, thank you so much. And I look forward to hearing all the great things that are going to come out of 2021 for you.
You can find all of our past episodes on iTunes, Spotify, and Google, or any of your other favorite podcast platforms. Be sure to subscribe to the show, rate, and leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. Thank you for listening.